Hi, welcome back to Serger Tip Clips. In a previous tip clip, I showed you how to gather fabric on your serger. But did you know that you can gather and ruffle fabric and attach it to a flat fabric all in one step? You can do that with the ruffling foot. This is the ruffling foot, and this little springy platform underneath is the separator platform, and you can see how it's a little bit springy. Let's review the settings for gathering. Your machine will be set up for a 4-thread overlock stitch. You'll have your stitch length on the longest one possible, and your differential feed will be set high on 2, meaning that your front feed dogs are working twice as fast as the back feed dogs. If your machine has tension settings, check your owner's manual. They may want you to raise the tension on your needle threads for gathering. Let's go to the serger and see how we actually do this technique. I've put the ruffling foot on my machine, and because that separator platform is a little bit springy, sometimes you have to kind of push down when you're sliding it onto your machine. But I've inserted the strip that's going to be ruffled under the foot. It's against the feed dogs, and you can see the separator platform on top of it. That's because I want the differential feed to gather the fabric. And the piece that's going to be ruffled is right side up. And in this case, because we're attaching it to a second fabric, they're going to be right sides together, and the fabric that will remain flat is going to be placed right side down in the little slot on the front. I've lowered my needles into that ruffling fabric just to help manage it. I use my needles like they're a third hand. Sometimes I wish I did have a third hand when I'm trying to manage multiple components for a technique. But the needles work great, so I've advanced that a little bit. I'm going to trim off about 1/8 of an inch, 1/8 to 1/4 of an inch for this end, but I have the needles advanced. I'm going to slide in the fabric that's going to remain flat, and again, that's right side down on top of the separator platform. And then I'm going to put my foot down, and I can begin stitching. Now, I just want to lightly use my left hand and fingertips just to manage that flat fabric. And rather than hold back on the ruffle fabric, I'm just going to support that underneath as it stitches along. Now, one little tip that I have that I found is handy is with the flat fabric, rather than having it completely straight as it goes through the foot, I like to angle it a little bit to the right. Now I'm going to angle that flat fabric slightly to the right so that you can see that. And let's just go along and see how this works out. Take your time as you're stitching along. That extra 30 seconds really makes a difference between not so great results or perfect results. Again, you're trying to manage multiple components, so it really does pay to kind of take your time. And you can see, let me just clip off my thread. I just want to point out that that 2-to-1 ratio is pretty darn close on this. You can see that it's just a hair longer, but not by much when it's attached. Here's another little tip that I've learned. If you want to encourage tighter gathers, on the flat fabric only, if you pull back as you're angling it to the right a little bit and put a little bit of tension on it, it will encourage tighter gathers. And you can see me pulling back on that. So let's take a look, and you'll see that that 2-to-1 ratio changes because the ruffled fabric is gathering up a little more because of that tension on the flat fabric. And one thing I want to mention while I'm stitching along is that because this is a specialty technique, it does take a little bit of practice to get all of the fabrics managed and everything else. It's not hard, but it does take a little bit of practice, persistence, and patience. So try it a few times before you go on to your actual project fabric. I'll finish this up, and let's take a look at the difference in the ratio of gathering. only. And you can see how much of the flat fabric is left over and how much tighter the gathers are. So that's just a little tip if you want a more ruffly ruffle. Thanks for joining me today. If you have an idea for a future tip clip, a technique that you'd like to see, please email me at gail@gailpatrice.com and I'll be happy to look at your suggestion. You may be the inspiration for a future tip clip. And don't forget, Serger Essentials, Master the Basics and Beyond, my new Serger book, is available for pre-order now and it'll be shipping at the end of November. Thanks again. See you soon.